Let's look ahead to the 2023 Oakland A's, Stu, and we'll specifically begin with the arbitration-eligible players for this offseason. I need you to define this. As a former GM, player agent, what does arbitration-eligible mean?
Well, it means that you've played 3 major league seasons, and after your 3 major league seasons, you are strictly under team control.
Right.
Then the team can give you a contract. The minimum salary is $700, so you can go $700, $725, $750, $775. Boom, you're done with that process. Now you become arbitration eligible. Arbitration eligibility means that you have a contract idea, the amount of money you want to be paid.
Right.
The ownership side has an idea what they want to be paid, and if you can't come to an agreement, then you bring it to an arbitrator. He settles it.
So that's pretty straightforward. Now, there are a lot of younger players, to your point, people on the A's who are under team control. They're not even in that arbitration eligible category. Right. Those are the players who are arbitration eligible. There's actually only going to be 2 free agents from the A's after this season. One is Chad Pinder. We just don't know his status. He's free to sign with anybody he wants, do whatever he wants. The other is the aforementioned Stephen Vogt, who has declared he is retiring from baseball. So 1 free agent, all those arbitration eligible players, a lot more under team control, but as of right now, the Oakland A's do not have a single player signed, actually signed, for next season. I can't say in sports how many times I've ever even seen that. What's the method here?
I mean, in my experience, I've never experienced that before, or never seen that before. In my experience, what the method is, I'm not sure. Sometimes it just falls like that. Sometimes it's planned like that. But a lot of things can happen, you know, when you have a situation like this. One, your arbitration eligible players, obviously, they're going to command something. We've got some players that are in their first year of arbitration. We've got some players that are in their second year of arbitration. We may have, I think, Tony Kemp in his last year of arbitration. And so these salaries will range, you know, anywhere from $2 million to $5 million, $6 million, depending on who the player is. And so what it does mean is this, you know, with revenue sharing, and I don't know where their budget is going to be set for player salaries next year, but it does offer an opportunity to spend more money on players next year going forward. You've got your arbitration eligible players. There's some free agent players out there that they can make bids and offers on. You know, we've got revenue sharing, which has to plan to this, and so the A's do have to spend money that's being given to them from revenue sharing. So depending on where their budget is, depending on where they want to spend, it does offer an opportunity for more spending next year for the team.
I guess the good news in all of this, the players that you have, you're going to get to keep. Like, there's not too many players who are here now that won't be here next year. They will be. It's just that there's not any under this long-term contractual situation. It also might just be the effect of this team is so young and literally so green that they're all just in this team control or arbitration category.
Right, and but it also offers for growth. I mean, you didn't think about this, but Hudson, Zito, and Mulder, those guys were all these guys.
At one point.
Yes, and they came along and they moved along. There was growth. They became better, and eventually they were a playoff-bound team. So I'm thinking that Billy and David Force, I think that they're looking at this as a situation where there's going to be some growth once they see the majority, because each year is evaluated. You look at these players and you say, this is where we are with these guys. Is it time to add in more seasoned players, more veteran players, more experienced, better players to get us to the playoffs? And that's what you have to do, and that's their job to evaluate when they're ready to do that.
With Laureano, Kemp, Guerra, Murphy, Blackburn, and Pruitt, the 6 arbitration-eligible players, it comes down to what they're hoping to get next year versus what the team is thinking about paying them. But ultimately, what an arbitrator thinks at the end. So you don't know. I mean, you know they'll all be A's. The only thing you don't know is salary total, and likely all on one more year.
But the unforeseen is we don't know that they'll all be A's, because there's a possibility of non-tender. A non-tender is a basic way of releasing. It's a term, non-tender, but it means you release the player. Guerra, he's a guy that's been hurt all year, and if depending on what that arbitration number is, if it's too high, you could non-tender that player. Tony Kemp, I like the way he plays. I like what he means for this team.
100%.
But depending on what that arbitration number is, he could be non-tendered. Now, let's not forget about A.J. Puck and Cole Irvin.
Right.
Those guys could fall under the Super 2. Now, the Super 2 player is a player that falls into the 22% of the 2- and 3-year players. And so if they fall in that 22%, they could be considered a Super 2 player, which means that they didn't quite get to 3 years, but they become arbitration eligible.
Well, there's a lot to sort out. I mean, again, you likely have an idea how the A's will look, but just as of right now, nobody has a contract in hand for next season.
Right.
So a lot of work to be done by the A's front office, Billy Beane and David Forst.